everyone. My name is Elias Said, and I am with Pedro Jerónimo, who is one of the board members of this ECREA conference, pre-conference, called New Media, Disinformation and Hate Speech Promotion. This pre-conference is sponsored by the FCT of Portugal and the Ministerio de Ciencia y Innovación from Spain, and is related with the project, and both are leading with other researchers in Spain and Portugal, and is Mediatrust.Lab from UBI in Portugal, and in my case, Hatemedia from the Universidad Internacional de La Rioja. For me, it's a pleasure to be here and try to promote a space for the debate related with new media, disinformation, and hate speech concept and terms, and recent years have been increased the sensation of the dissemination of design of expression, for example, and the realization of disinformation from digital space right now. During this pre-conference, we will have the chance to debate with different experts from Spain and Portugal mainly. One of them is Pedro also, and we will talking about this important team that we selected and from this pre-conference and the 9th European Communication Conference, ECREA 2002. The main goal of this pre-conference, as you could see from the website, and is published all the information related, is to look at how disinformation and hate speech is spread in public opinion from different perspectives. Not only focusing on understanding how to disseminate and affect general population, but also to discern about the role assumed by fact-checkers, journalists, and new media during the widening recognition of this kind of content at local and national levels. I don't know, Pedro, if you want to introduce yourself. For me, it will be a pleasure as the closest partner that we have in this conference, a friend and a colleague. Right now, we will start the pre-conference with two speeches from Silvio Santos from the University of Coimbra, and also Susana, another expert from the University of Lisbon. Okay, so Pedro, it's all yours.
Hi everyone, I welcome you in the name of the project Mediatrust and as a co-partner of this pre-conference. It's a pleasure and to be here looking to the program. Sees so very nice, and the perspective and then expectation are high, looking at the schedule and all the communication that we're going to have in this first day of ECREA, but in our case in this pre-conference. As Elias said already, this is a partnership between two projects that are being led from Elias in Spain, related to hate speech, and in my case in Portugal, Mediatrust.Lab, that is a project focused on disinformation at a more local level. We are going to talk a little bit more in front in my presentation more about this project, but basically this was a project that born in the first the first lockdown, when we are dealing with and reading some stuff that are being published and being researched around disinformation, fact checking, media literacy, and what we found it was. It's very scarce, the research on more focused around local communities, local media, local journals, more around this like a scenario, and so we put this project on going on since the last year, and so we do this partnership with Hatemedia to bring this pre-conference. So from my part is I reinforced my welcome to all of the participants, people that are doing research on this field, the ones that are going to communicate their results and reflections about these issues, but also the ones that are interested on these topics and follow us, and also welcome. So welcome to all.
Well, we will introduce the first speaker, Silvio, is from the Universidad of Coimbra. And as I mentioned before, Pedro will be in charge in his first block. We want to be lead by Pedro in the first moment of this conference, pre-conference, and the rest of members they will help during this process. Okay, so I will be out, and I hope that Silvio, Susana, and others that will be part of this pre-conference can debate about these important things, and also all the people that are watching us or follow this debate can share their ideas through the chat from YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, and we are online right now. Okay, so it's all yours, Pedro.
Thank you, Elias. Welcome back. The first presenter is Silvio. This is a Portuguese panel, the first one. And Silvio, it's not only a well-known colleague, but also a member of the team of our project. He's been done research about these issues, disinformation, fact-checking, but also it's an expert around things, research around radio, and it's one of the topics that focus is in research. Silvio, thanks for your proposal, for being here with us. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Pedro. Thank you for the invitation. This actually, this is a very exploratory and introductory research, but it will give us some clues about what is going on in Portugal regarding fact-checking. Let me see if I can share the PowerPoint. Okay, this is different from Zoom. Sorry. Okay. This one. Hello. Okay. Are you watching the PowerPoint? Can you see the PowerPoint?
No, we are not seeing the PowerPoint.
No.
Okay. How do you have from the panel bottom?
Yeah, it has an icon to present and then share the screen. That's what I was doing, but I will try it again one more time. If it doesn't work, I will do it without it. It's not,
You can send me by email and I can share you. Don't worry.
let's see, share. Okay, Microsoft PowerPoint, allow. Okay, can you see it now?
No, we are not seeing now.
No problem. Well, this is one of the problems of not having the time to rehearse the.
But if you send me the presentation, I won't have any trouble to upload.
It can be difficult to articulate the passage of the slide. So it's not a problem. I will be. I always do some very minimal presentations just with some pictures. It's not actually that important. So as you all know, disinformation has been around for long. So although its first manifestations are sometimes hard to define with precision, fake news was firstly presented as a problem in the late 19th century in America. So this is quite old. It was when the penny press aimed for the first time at a new kind of reader, the common man, that news reporting actually changed. So deceptions like the famous Great Moon hoax, I think that you all know the Great Moon hoax, that was published in the New York Sun in 1835, spread through these papers as a way to attract the masses. So, however, truth soon became more valuable in terms of business. In a fast-changing society, facts gained importance as a way to make sense of the expanding mass culture. And publishers were able to see that. So at the core of this movement towards truth, journalism ended up becoming a bastion of truth. Being a reporter was about getting the facts right, just like Kovac and Rosenstiel say, getting the facts right. So nevertheless, the 20th century was fertile in some cases of manipulation, especially during war periods. However, these information disorders were never more than mere episodes, mere anomalies. They cannot be considered structural as they are today. After the turning of the millennium, massive changes occurred in the media ecosystem that were caused by the massification of mobile technology that now is widely accessible in terms of price and usability. People became permanently connected with their mobile devices, and social media became nearly ubiquitous. So, contrary to what happened during the mass media monopoly, people started to do more than simply consuming information. It was possible for the common user to create and to spread content, potentially reaching a number of people that was previously exclusive to the mass media. And these new techno-social practices created a hybrid ecosystem with complex flows of spreadability resulting from the new participatory culture. As a result, information was never as available as it is today. People are constantly exposed to information that originates from the most diverse sources with quite different intentions. We are living in what Claire Wardle and Hussein Derakhshan call information disorder, as I'm sure you are all familiar with. It's not just about fake news. There are various uses of information with manipulative intentions. To understand this context, we need to make reference to other movements. Just 1 second. We need to make reference to other movements that are related. The increasing polarization that is visible in politics, environment, health, etc., the rise of populist movements that threaten the freedom of press, the crisis of journalism, whose response to its multiple challenges has not been sufficiently swift, the decreasing value of facts, some call this post-fact or post-truth society, and I think this is one of the most important, an enormous lack of preparation from common people to deal with algorithmic bias, with cognitive bias, with misleading information, and with the importance of understanding and contacting with difference, with what is different from our beliefs and from our practice. In the end, research hasn't yet fully explained how people deal with the daily overdose of information, and I believe that is also very important. As you know, 2016 was a pivotal time in this process. The manipulation of information was suddenly debated everywhere. We had the American elections, then Brexit, we had Russia's international interference. These are some of the most well-known cases of manipulation. And it was precisely to face Russia's interference that European institutions started discussing and promoting joint responses to this disinformation. So fact-checking is a nuclear concept in this multifaceted response. Although the verification of information is an intrinsic part of the journalism practice, the downsizing and financial constraints of media outlets, as well as the pressure of time in online publishing, are turning fact-checking into an increasingly scarce habit. At the same time, new players that, despite the nature of its intentions, fall outside the sphere of journalistic deontology, these new players entered the information process. So we have been witnessing a space for independent verification outside the original producer. The European Commission has emphasized the importance of this new element that is exclusively dedicated to the analysis of what others are publishing. Fact-checkers analyze the rigor of the information by verifying its facts and sources, as well as its production and dissemination. This kind of project has its roots in the United States of America, where it developed during the last 2 decades. In 2014, the first global fact-checking summit gathered over 20 countries with similar projects. The following year, International Fact-Checking Network was launched by the Poynter Institute to gather and support the thriving of fact-checkers worldwide. IFCN monitors policies, monitors trends, promotes standard practices, provides training, and supports initiatives with its members. So, according to the census conducted by the Duke's Reporters Labs, there are currently 391 fact-checking outlets in 105 countries. And I have to say that the amount of projects has doubled in 6 years. Regarding my research and methodology, this is an exploratory study, a small exploratory study with quite modest aims. It looked, I looked for a simple approach to this topic, which was to map the fact-checking projects that exist in Portugal. It's a qualitative research that resorts on documental analysis, online search, and website observation to map the fact-checking projects. So I conducted this documental search using the words fact, checking, disinformation, fake, news, and Portugal in both Portuguese and English languages. The results enabled the identification of the projects that were posteriorly observed. To be considered, projects had to dedicate its activity to fact-checking, either by verifying the news or by focusing on related topics. So, Results. There are currently three Portuguese fact-checking sites in the Duke's Reporters Lab. They're called Polígrafo, Observador, and Prova dos Factos. These projects are IFCN verified signatories and have to comply with the Reporters Lab rules. Polígrafo was the first fact-checking site created in Portugal. It was in 2018. It is a commercial outlet exclusively dedicated to fact-checking. Polígrafo scrutinizes public figures, from politicians to artists and other public interveners whose actions or words have public interest. Polígrafo has a weekly space on the Portuguese leading television channel, SIC. And financially, this is very interesting because financially, Polígrafo is living, this is a quote, a fact-checker's dream scenario, because it reached the break-even point in less than a year. So this is quite relevant. All news are available in open access. The next project, Observador. Observador is an online news publication that has a fact-checking section. The main publication appeared online in 2014. It's a digital native, and during the first 4 years was supported by advertising in a free access business model. In 2018, the newspaper adopted a freemium model. Fact-checking appeared in 2015 as an autonomous section, and the layout is quite different from Polígrafo. It offers the entire collection of fact checks dating back to 2015, which amounted for more than 300 pieces. It has also established a partnership with a private TV channel, also one of the leading open channel TVs, TVI, and has also a weekly presence. There's a third agent specifically dedicated to fact-checking. It's called A Prova dos Factos. It is promoted by Público, which is a quality daily newspaper that is published since 1989. A Prova dos Factos appeared as a specific section in 2019. The content is not open to everyone because there is a paywall in the journal, in the newspaper. The fact checks are focused on what is spreading through social media, and the section also includes fact checks from other partner agencies. Then we have other projects that are worth mentioning in this mapping. The weekly magazine Visão has also a small online section dedicated to fact checking. It's called Verified, Verificado. And it's the most recent of these projects. It has been around for a year. Visão is a well-established magazine created in 1993. Also, in January 2019, the Portuguese news agency, Agência Lusa, launched a fact-checking project, but this is a different project. Lusa is not debunking false news or any kind of disinformation. The site displays news about disinformation, media, and technology use in everyday life. And it also offers pedagogical resources like games and other tools that are focused on the promotion of media literacy. So this site has a different approach. However, this is also a fact that I consider to be quite interesting. We can say that the roots of fact-checking projects date back to 2015, when a Facebook project, a Facebook profile called Os Truques da Imprensa Portuguesa, the tricks of the Portuguese press, was launched. Truques was an anonymous project until 2017, when the authors came public with their identities. And this project was uncovering and explaining several strategies and processes behind the news, from clickbaits to factual errors. However, and this is the interesting part, Truques never intended to be a journalistic outlet. The authors presented the project as a community effort to uncover the intentions and the artifices behind the news. So this is interesting because we could consider this an effort from the civic sphere. However, the last post was published over a year now, so we suppose it's discontinued. As final notes, I can say that the last decade has seen an increasing fragility of the journalistic sector in Portugal. Newspaper owners are still looking for a way to overcome the changes originated by the new consumption habits, and journalists are becoming an increasingly precarious class. And it's a class that it is so often seduced by the driving intoxication and frequently forgotten of the profession's ethos. So there are currently these 5 running pages dedicated to fighting disinformation in Portugal. Let me recap. Polygrapho is the only one dedicated, fully dedicated in Portugal. It has achieved financial stability. Also public recognition. This is in Portugal. This is important, especially because due to the partnership with the leading television channel. Observador and Público are newspapers that dedicate a specific section to fact-checking. Revista Visão is the smallest of these projects, but it also tackles disinformation that is online, but still has a limited archive. And Agência Lusa has created this subsite dedicated to the topic with specific pedagogical purposes. But it's still a work in progress. There are lots of sections that are announced, but still are under construction. So, fake news, that was os truques da imprensa portuguesa, that was the only community project that was not run by journalists. It's a different kind of project, obviously, but it showed vigorous signs of concern from the civil society, and it's important for that. Unfortunately, it seems to be inactive. So what seems to be clear when looking at this map of fact-checkers in Portugal is that civic involvement was not sustainable. So we can see that from the project that got inactive. The rest of the projects are run by established news outlets, which seems to indicate that the fact-checking label, checking what others are wrongly publishing, is probably interesting from a branding perspective or from a business perspective. The interest of open commercial television channels is also a sign that there is a clear interest in this approach. We can also mention that the recent commitment of Facebook and other major players is absolutely nuclear in this project, since social media is the main path for disseminating this kind of content. However, in this info war, fact-checking initiatives and self-regulatory commitments by social platforms may not be enough without people's moral and ethical commitment towards the other, and the other meaning the one that is different, the one that thinks differently from them. So I think that we can say that this is not only a challenge for the news or the news media. This is mainly a civilizational challenge about the way that we deal with truth and with the importance of truth and the freedom of information. So an interesting feature, just final note, that I identified in this observation is that these projects are not only focusing on fake news that circulates through social media, they are looking directly at the politicians' public interventions and debunking their speech. And this is probably the next step for this research, which is to look at these sites through content analysis and understand the specificities in their models of verification and what kind of content is verified by them.
Thank you, Silvio, for your excellent for your thoughts, for sharing your thoughts and research. And then we are going to move to Susana with the presentation Studying Hate, Disinformation in Different Contexts, a textual analysis approach with some other colleagues. Oh, welcome, Susana.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be in this conference, so thank you to the organizers for including our paper. I have a few slides. I don't know if anyone can put them on the screen. Okay, thank you so much. So this paper is part of research project HATE that is funded by the Portuguese Foundation for Science and Technology. The project started in 2018 and has just ended officially. The funding, I say, because we are still working on the data analysis and of course, the ensuing publications, hopefully. The research project has a multidisciplinary team joining colleagues from political science, media and communication, sociology, and computer science. And basically, the rationale behind the choice of the topic is related to the current debate on whether online media, and particularly social media, are contributing to the erosion of democracy. So the idea is that these media have both accentuated some existing trends in politics, such as political polarization, for example, and have induced new attitudes as well. So among the most concerning features are hate and disinformation, of course. Not there yet. Thank you. So social media do enhance inflammatory posts, and on some occasions are correlated with the rise in the public demonstration of different kinds of bigotry and even violence. And furthermore, it is difficult to measure the fake content that is circulating and its impact on political debates, and particularly on political trust. And this because the perception of false information in politics affects also the perception of false information in politics affects overall trust in political actors, institutions, and in the system itself. And as we have already observed, there are cases in which social media has changed politics for the worse. A growing number of people are getting exposed to low-quality content, and there is a normalization of extreme positions and the trivialization of hate. But as we know, research on these topics is not straightforward in terms of conclusions. It seems that for several of these research questions, there are confirming and dissenting studies, as well as studies that indicate some mixed results or inconclusive results. And furthermore, this is not a unified phenomenon, as there are cross-platform differences, cross-country differences, in addition to different effects on different individuals, considering, of course, their background, beliefs, and predispositions. So all this makes it the more important to produce not only empirical research, but also research that is comparative in its nature. So Project HATE does produce empirical and comparative research and has different approaches to study these issues. And the paper I am presenting here today is just one of those approaches that resulted from a large collection of tweets, comments in Reddit, and newsreader comments in newspapers' websites. We have included 6 countries. These are Brazil, Chile, Portugal, Spain, the US, and the UK. And the data collection was made using an algorithm specifically written that considered predetermined passwords to collect user-generated content on 2 topics, immigration and unemployment. We considered these 2 topics important in political debates in these countries, well, and beyond, but at least in these countries. The period of the data collection was 1 year in 2019 and 2020. And we did retrieve considerable amounts of data, but had to leave out more than half of it because it was not possible to determine their geolocation. And we wanted to do a cross-country comparison. So a lot of this data, we couldn't use it. And the final sample is composed of almost 5 million items that were content analyzed. Very quickly, before I go to the variables, a small sample was coded by human coders that used a thorough codebook, and then this manually coded data we use in an NLP process in which an algorithm was taught to code the entire sample on a selection of variables. The classification accuracy ranged from 75 to 90%, 95% depending on the variable. So now the variables, the next slide. I will explain only the most important variables that are included in this presentation. Now the next slide. Thank you so much. So we have hate, of course, that includes identifying language that encourages violence, any kind of attack, and that diminishes a person, a group, an institution. We have also in politeness, here we coded if the item included any type of vulgarity, swear words, words in capital letters, insults, name calling, that kind of stuff. We also included false information perception in the sense that if users were expressing skepticism or doubt about the veracity of any information that was conveyed as real by official or even non-official sources. So any type of information circulating online. We have also included common people knowledge in the sense that, well, to see if users were prioritizing or valuing the knowledge of the common people or practical knowledge of everyday experience above the experts or official sources. And then we coded populism. Well, we included the different elements of populism. And why is this? Because there was the expectation that discourses that enhance anxiety, uncertainty could affect the expression of intolerance and hate. Populism is also known for pitting groups against each other. So basically, that's the reason why populism was included in the study as well. So we looked for references to the people, of course, to anti-elitism, anti-system, Manichaeism and polarization, blame shifting and scapegoating, ideal nation. So these variables, and of course we also coded political orientation, right and left wing or neutral in all the items. These variables are dichotomic, coded as yes for presence and no for absence. And we have also created a dichotomic for general prevalence of populism as well. So basically just recording the presence of or absence of any type of populism. So the next slide will show you a general characterization of the sample. So the total sample was composed of almost 5 million items coded and now being analyzed. Slightly more items collected from 2020, much more items from newspapers and Twitter than Reddit. Here, the main problem is not that we do not have comments that were collected from Reddit. The problem here was to infer their geolocation. The way that Reddit is organized is not straightforward in terms of identifying the subreddit's geolocation. And of course, many of them include people that are from different countries, different locations. So we had to leave out all the Reddit comments that we are not sure that belong to that or that country. In terms of topic, we have slightly more items on unemployment and the overall prevalence of hate and impoliteness, populism, common people knowledge, and the perception of false information is, as you can see in the table that is on the right, and also more right-wing than left-wing items overall. So in the next slide, we have the analysis of hate and impoliteness. Next slide, please. So thank you. In terms of the distribution of hate and impoliteness per country, so here we are analyzing from the total messages, total items, what is the percentage of items that include hate and impoliteness in each country. So we can see, it's the first table, we can see that political environments that are more polarized also show higher levels of hate and impoliteness in their environments. That is, well, in their online environments, that is in our study, online interactions on social media between users and the newsreader comments in newspapers. In terms of the distribution of hate per type of media, the second table, so we can see that in most countries except in the US, it is the newspaper comments that have more prevalence of hate when compared to Reddit and Twitter. In the US, it is Twitter. Considering that most newspaper commentary sections are monitored, it was surprising to find these levels of hate in newspaper comments compared to Reddit and Twitter. We do have to investigate this further, namely the actual content of the comments and the forms in which hate is expressed. But if we think a bit, and if we go to the actual commentary sections, it is not unheard because the level of, I would not say just disagreement, but the level of hate in many of those is quite high. At least the ones I know. The results could also be explained by the length of comments, particularly when compared to Twitter. Of course, this has to be taken into account. And then we have also in the distribution of impoliteness table, the last table, we can see that the same trend was found in impoliteness with slightly higher numbers for Reddit as well here. So in the next slide, we have hate and political orientation. So basically, we are looking at the posts with hate, what is their political orientation? So we see that overall messages containing hate are mostly right-wing in all countries, and the differences with left-wing are very accentuated. This seems to be in line with the literature that points to right-wing users and networks as the most responsible for spreading hate in online environments. And regarding the prevalence of hate per topic, we can see that there is more hating messages on immigration than on employment, which makes sense, of course, considering the type of debates on the two topics. However, I would say that the levels of hating messages on unemployment should not be neglected as well. The next slide, I present the results on populism. So basically, in terms of the overall high prevalence of populism, as we can see in the first table, I would say that is not that surprising, considering that we are analyzing comments by online users. So we are analyzing comments by the people, although they are high, because we were looking for those specific features of populism that I mentioned in the beginning. And although these percentages are generally high in all countries, there are differences across countries regarding the media with the higher prevalence. So we can see that in some cases it is the newsreader comments, Brazil and Portugal. In other cases it is Twitter, the UK and the US, and finally Reddit for Chile and Spain. But in most cases, as we can see, the differences are not very high. So in the second table, there is populism and political orientation. So basically, within populist posts, what is their political orientation? We can identify a trend towards more right-wing than left-wing populism in all countries, also following the overall high prevalence of right-wing posts and left-wing posts. And a first simple conclusion is that this seems to be pointing to the fact that right-wing is more active online than left-wing. Regarding the final table, false information perception and populism. So here we're looking for, in the messages displaying false information perception, what is the prevalence of populist claims? So there seems to be a relation here. We have to explore this further, but there seems to be a relation, particularly looking at the numbers in the US, Portugal, and Brazil. So as main conclusions, to finish, I would like to highlight particularly the common trends that we found. So more right-wing than left-wing user-generated content overall. As expected, also slightly more in politeness than hate, 20 and 14% in the overall sample. And countries with more hate overall are Spain, UK and Chile. More hate in newspaper comment sections, followed by Twitter. More hate in right-wing than left-wing comments. More hate in posts on immigration than on employment in all countries, and overall high levels of populism, as I explained, not surprising considering that we are analyzing user-generated content. More right-wing populism in all countries, and the relation between false information perception and populism to explore further. I think this is quite interesting, but of course we need to investigate this a bit more. So I'll finish here, and thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Susana, for your study, and more broader than Portugal, and thank you both for the time that you use for your presentation. That gives us almost 30 minutes to debate. So let's see if we have questions. Not yet in the chat on YouTube, and I ask you, the people that are following us, that can put your questions to Silvio or Susana, or both, on the chat. But usually the first question is more harder, but I'm going to do it. It's a question for both. As you tell, and especially Silvio in his presentation, talking about disinformation increases more since 2016. But my question is, what is your perspective from these last years, and with the pandemic, and now with the conflict in Ukraine and Russia? What is your thoughts about the last years? Do you think the information is increasing? Media are more aware and investing in fact checking, and also a third part of the question: what do you think And this is a question that came to me before the presentation of Silvio. It talked about when it's not a project, it's a civic initiative. What do you think about the civic participation, the public participation in this process? Fact-checking is almost related with journalists, including in the media projects or independent projects of fact-checking. But what do you think about the possible participation, the involvement of the public on this battle? I don't know who wants to start, Silvio.
Well, these are very interesting topics. Well, I'm a bit pessimistic about the way people deal with this. I've done some research also with focus groups, for example, and I think that most people are actually not ready to deal with this, to deal with the various dynamics of disinformation that they encounter in every day. But as I was saying, I have this question that I've been wanting to methodologically answer with some kind of research, but we don't have the time for everything. But I have this question that is, you get a lot of information during your day. Some of which is false, some of which is true, some it's simply misleading. But in the end of the day, what actually makes sense to you and what actually stays with you? And I'm not sure how much actually stays with. I'm here thinking about my daughter. My daughter is 17, and she studies a lot, fortunately, but she spends a lot of time in social media. In the several hours that she spends on her several screens, how much information actually stays with her in the end of the day? I really don't have an answer for this. But the idea that I have is actually that most people are actually not prepared. I have also found that let me pass the floor to Susana, and I will continue in a later moment.
Okay, Susana.
Okay, thank you for the question. This is really interesting. Unfortunately, I can only offer a very personal and not very scientific perspective on this, because this was not included in our study. And the reason for that is that it would be impossible to check the veracity of this type of content in terms of the amount of content that we were dealing with, and also because sometimes it's not that straightforward, because information can have elements of both truthful perspectives and biased false perspectives. So we did discuss this and as a team, and we decided to go for the false information perception. So basically the idea that people have that they are being mistaken on purpose, or that someone is trying to lie to them or whatever, which kindly fits very well within the design research that we were looking for in, well, the generation of hate, the expression of hate, and how people feel that they are not represented and that they are being lied to and so on. What I would include, and that I think is really important, is the fact that we know that there are studies that show how people do tend to look for information that confirms their beliefs or their views or their likes and dislikes. So there is, of course, well, the amount of information circulating is, of course, greater. We know that more than ever before. There is this selection that we all need to do. And there are studies that show that, well, most people, we are all humans, we tend to look for information that confirm our expectations, our views. So in this sense, disinformation could become an even greater problem than it is already right now. And I would like very much to offer solutions, but not there yet.
I can continue with that idea. I think that's not only the confirmation bias that we are witnessing. There are several cognitive biases that are studied, mostly by psychology, and there are several traps to this. It's not only the idea that we find for information that confirms our previous beliefs, but it is also the idea that, for example, media are against me, for example. There are several mechanisms, and that's why I say that this is a civilizational challenge. Most of all, because there is a text by Paul Meailidis that I really like, and he says, well, if I go to the internet, I look for something, I find something that confirms my beliefs, so why should I look for something else? I stop my search there. So when I mean that this is a civilizational challenge, I mean that, okay, you find what you are looking for, but you have to remember that there are other views, and they don't come directly to you because of several processes. But should you look further once you've found what you are looking for? So this is why I think that most people are not prepared to deal with this amount of information, because I see that when I look for information regarding flat Earth, I find it. It's on the internet. So why should I look any further? And if the fact today is not unifying as it was before, because it's not. That's the premise of the post-fact society, right? The facts are not unifying as they were before. Everyone is entitled to its own fact, because I can look and find that one on the internet. That's why I say that people are mostly not prepared, and this is kind of a civilizational challenge that has to do with, I would say that it has to do with having doubts, with being empathetic towards the other, open to difference. So I don't want to become to take this to a transcendental level, but I think it's actually that way. It's a change that has to be, that needs to have that magnitude.
You're talking about that led us to media literacy. It's curious because we did a exploratory research talking with journalists in Portugal and in Spain. In one of the questions that we have done at the end, an open question: what are the public policies and what are their suggestions to deal with this, and it's curious because in case of Spain, all journalists point to a law that a transparency law that exists in Spain, and all the Portuguese journalists point to media literacy, and it's a topic that's been it's been researched and worked here in Portugal. We have a question here from Elias to Susana. What types of messages, examples associated with immigration and unemployment are most associated with the expression of hate found in the study, and the predominant ones by country? Thank you, Elias.
Okay, so the predominant ones by country will be difficult to identify smaller differences. Basically, in terms of immigration, what we find is messages identifying particular groups of immigrants that come to the country and are, quoting, stealing resources, using the welfare state. Basically, the population of the country are working and paying taxes, and those taxes are, instead of being used for our problems, are being used to support these people from other countries, and particularly the ones with cultures that are very different from the countries that they go to. So Muslims are a group that is very, very well hated in this kind of interactions. In the US, we can also find that there's a divide between white and black. This is very specific of the US. We did not find this in any of the other countries, or very, of course, smaller percentages. In terms of unemployment, then we also have hate messages directed at the politicians that are incompetent and that are not able to fix the problems in the economy, are not able to create job opportunities for those in need. So basically, this is, and of course, also sometimes there's a mix. Because the unemployment items sometimes also refer to people from outside that are taking the jobs. So basically the jobs that the natives do not want, they are taking it, but then this is not viewed as something positive, because basically they are occupying space that could belong to the populations of that country. So this is more or less what we find. In immigration, there is also hate towards politicians. In some cases, politicians who have a more global perspective in terms of openness of the country to different cultures, different customs, that are not very well viewed by some users. And in the left part is those politicians that are not open to receiving people in need. So we have these two. So in the left is hate towards politicians who are against immigration, and in the right we have hate against politicians who are opening the country to new cultures. And basically the concern is that the culture of in terms of immigration, the culture of the country will be lost. So what is the essence of the country, the essence of the people, will be lost. And here it links very well to populist claims, populist ideas. So another reason why we have also analyzed this. Of course, we are in a very preliminary stage of the data analysis. We want to examine all of this even further. The project, of course, lasted for all these years, but it has been like a huge work just to gather the information, just to clean the databases. So this takes a long time, and hopefully I will have more information by country that I can share very soon with all of you.
Pedro, can I add a small anecdote? I conducted a very small research on incivility and hate speech, but it was a qualitative methodology with focus groups. And so this is interesting because it kind of completes what Susana was saying. And I was trying to see how young women that were enrolled in higher education courses experienced hate and incivility in their online experience. And we had several Brazilian students, and we found that that is already documented, that Brazilian women suffer from a specific stereotype in Portugal. But I was able to understand that there were several comments regarding women from other Portuguese-speaking countries that are in Portugal. But the main thing here is this, because that we already know. The main thing here is this. The university sometimes promotes some initiatives to promote diversity, to do something to tackle this kind of things in the academic community. And they tell me, I was able to understand that the only people who goes to those sessions are the victims, are the ones from Mozambique, the women from Mozambique, or the women from Angola, or from Brazil, who suffer the acts of hate speech and incivility. So the other people which actually could benefit from this kind of action, they do not go there. You don't see Portuguese students in those sessions. So that's why I wanted to say, and complementing what Susana was saying, that was actually the answer to this question. This has to be a bigger change. That's not only about journalism. It's not only about news, etc., etc., etc. This is something different.
Thank you. I have a question for Silvio, but I also would have a question to Susana. Your project have finished already, but I was wondering what could be the results, especially because the data is before the war that we are witnessing, and probably the hate speech around immigration, I don't know, could be different. But if you have some thoughts about that, your perceptions after the data collected and about this issue could complement. And I introduce a question specific to Silvio, also from Elias. What is the role, what should it be, or what should it be, of the fact checkers in Portugal in detecting hate speech? Silvio, or Susana, yeah, you can compliment.
Okay. Well, very quickly, just to say, I don't think there will be that much change. Because, well, from what I can see, most users are not that concerned with, well, I don't know if you're referring to immigrants from the Ukraine, because, well, they are white, they are victims, their culture is not, well, it's different, it's not that different from ours. So I don't see that posing an issue, except for the fact that more resources are being used, so less tolerance for those that are the most different from, well, the Europeans, and in the case of the US and Brazil and Chile. Well, I don't know that well the reality in Chile, I have to be honest. And also in Brazil, the topic immigration is not as important in terms of overall relevance as in the other countries. So that could be basically because they have other issues more important to concern with. That could be the type of immigration that they have, that the numbers are low. We also have to investigate this further.
Thank you. Silvio?
Well, you don't have a national code of principles for this kind of activity in Portugal. So some of these publications have a small code of action, but you don't have a global framing for this. But especially the three main ones, they comply with the IFCN code of principles, so they ought to include that in their action. But I have not I haven't performed any content analysis, so I'm not comfortable with this answer. But they comply with it, and from what I could see, merely in a non-systematized way, they include those topics, obviously, but I cannot give you a more detailed answer.
Okay, thank you, Susana. Thank you, Silvio. We will end this round of answering questions. Thanks again, both for your presentations, for your thoughts, your questions also.